We're here today on the job site to demonstrate the proper use of direct tension indicators, otherwise known as DTIs or load indicating washers. The most common use of the DTI is to place the DTI under the bolt head, turning the nut to tighten. We will now demonstrate that for you. I will hold the spud wrench and observe the DTI as the protrusions begin to collapse. When I believe that they have collapsed to the proper gap, I will signal the operator to stop impacting the bolt. Go. There we go. Took less than 3 seconds to impact that. Visually, I can look at the DTI, see that the protrusions have been collapsed to the proper gap, and that fastener has now been installed properly. The second most common use of a DTI is to put the DTI under the nut, turning the nut to tighten. One of the advantages of using a Turna Sure DTI is that it does not require the use of a hardened washer. Operating the impact wrench, I will also keep an eye on the DTI, again compressing it to the proper gap. Visually, I can see that this DTI has been compressed to the proper gap, and this bolt and nut has been properly tensioned. The third method of installing the DTIs was very similar to the one we just did, only the DTI is placed under the bolt head and you turn the bolt head to tighten. Again, very similar to the method that we just installed. Those are the three methods of properly installing DTIs. On connections larger than the one I just worked on for DTI installation methods, it is very critical that the bolts must first be snug tightened before final tightening. With DTIs, this is easily accomplished. The first partial tightening pass is in order to bring the plies into firm contact, thus preventing subsequent loosening of adjacent bolts on the second pass, as the plies will have first been fully compacted. By partially compressing each DTI, more than half the required final tension will be induced in each bolt. So for instance, on a 7/8 inch A325 bolt, that will be about 10 tons in each bolt. That should be more than sufficient to bring all the plies together. Work on the bolts at the most rigid part of the connection first, then tighten out to its free edges. DTIs are the only method where you can visually gauge snug tight. Now finally tighten by fully compressing each DTI as I have just demonstrated. Please remember to follow the rules for short slotted and oversized holes. Remember to cover the holes with an F436 hardened washer. Make sure the holes in the washer are normal size. Then place the DTI on the top of the hardened washer. Many times on the job site, as we've seen, you will encounter bolts and nuts in this condition. Now, the required torque to tension this fastener properly will increase dramatically. One of the resolutions to this problem is to apply wax or some type of lubricant. We highly recommend this product. It can be applied to the threads of the bolt. You can also apply it to the nut face of the washer. Again, this will dramatically reduce the friction and make the iron worker's job a lot easier to tension the bolts, nuts, and DTIs properly. The use of DTIs is just not limited to hex head bolts. They can be utilized when you are using twist-off bolts. the DTI should be placed under the twist-off bolt head, put through the iron, and tensioned as it normally would. Again, this will verify that the twist-off bolt has been tensioned, and we will visually be able to examine that by seeing the protrusions on the DTI compressed to the proper gap. As you can see, the spline on the TC bolt broke off as it should. The gap on the DTI confirms that this twist-off bolt gave the proper tension when installed. Just another option for using DTIs. Many times in the field we see nuts and bolts in this condition. Now, one of the advantages of using a DTI will confirm whether this bolt, this twist-off bolt, reaches the required tension. We will put the DTI under the bolt head, put the bolt through the iron, tension it down, and see what happens. Now that we have installed the twist-off bolt in field conditions with a little surface deterioration, the inspector will come around and inspect it with the appropriate feeler gauge. As you can see, the feeler gauge fit in 4 of the 5 areas. The spline broke off prematurely due to the condition of the bolt. This bolt is not properly tensioned. Once the bolting has been completed, the inspector, using the required feeler gauge, will come around and visually and with the feeler gauge inspect each of the bolted connections. When the DTI is used under the bolt head, a 15/1000th of an inch feeler gauge is used. It should fit into less than 50% of the spaces available. When the DTI is installed under the nut, a 5/1000th of an inch feeler gauge is used. Again, the same rules apply. It should fit into less than 50% of the spaces available. There's no need to over-inspect DTIs. Most inspection can be accomplished visually. DTIs are the only method where 100% visual inspection for proper tension is possible. It should be noted that TurnaSure DTIs can be fully flattened without concern. This is easy to see and is a fail-safe yes, the bolt is properly tensioned. Note that for bridge work, all gaps must be reduced to 5/1000ths of an inch or less, and similarly, all galvanized or coated DTIs must be closed to less than 5/1000ths of an inch. Just select the largest gaps, and if the feeler gauge refuses in more than half those tries, you know the bolt is properly tensioned. Then, the other adjacent bolted assemblies in the rest of the connection can be approved by visual comparison. The final section on installation and inspection, although shot several years ago, applies today. It covers the 7 sins that prevent bolts from being tensioned properly. This well-demonstrated review will help achieve the goal of